You ever have one of those days where you walk out your front door and realize the world you thought you understood just got rewritten overnight? Yeah, that happened to me, a retired forest ranger with 30 years of mud on my boots and a head full of wind patterns. See, I bought this so-called useless slice of land at the edge of Pine Hollow because I saw something everybody else missed. A place with room to breathe where the trees could tell their stories, and maybe, just maybe, I could start to remember who I was before the fires and the floods. So the first thing I did, even before unpacking my last box, was plant a windbreak. A staggered line of sturdy pines and stubborn old junipers, the kind of trees that bend but don't break when life blows sideways. Now, I didn't go big on purpose, I just did it right. Mapped the angle by compass, paid out of pocket, kept notes, and checked in with a state reforestation advisor who used to be my rookie way back when. To me, this wasn't just landscaping. It was my own little act of hope, something living, something that could hold the land together when everything else tried to tear it apart. And back then, nobody batted an eye. Mr. Tanaka, the old HOA president with a handshake like warm bread, just said, "If you can keep the deer out, go for it." So I did. Years passed. My windbreak grew strong, cutting the chill in winter, shading the fence in summer, even attracting birds that I swear remembered me from somewhere else. Neighbors liked to joke my house looked like a postcard from a ranger calendar, but I kept to myself. I didn't join the wine nights or the driveway power wash marathons. I paid my dues. I kept quiet. And for a long while the neighborhood returned the favor, until the notice showed up. No envelope, just a sheet of paper taped to my mailbox, bold letters, HOA seal and language that made my hackles rise. Excessive natural screening, non-standard perimeter foliage, aesthetic or safety risks. I stood there rereading excessive like it was an insult, thinking, here we go. I'd seen bureaucrats come and go, people who couldn't tell a maple from a weed looking for problems just to justify their meetings. So I did what any rational person does. I drafted a letter, explained the science, the soil retention, the windbreak's benefit, the state support, the history. Attached the photos, the surveys, even the old approval from back in 2001. Sent it all in, figured that would be the end of it. 2 weeks went by, nothing. Rick from the board waved at me one morning like we were pals. I thought maybe they dropped it. I was wrong. While I was away visiting my son, first grandbaby, can't miss that they came with chainsaws. My neighbor Maria, bless her, called me in tears. Said she heard the roar and came out to find a crew hacking through my windbreak orange paint, marking trunks, limbs fed into chippers like it was garbage day. She tried to stop them, showed them her shaky hand, said it was private land. They waved a sheet of paper at her, some supposed authorization, and kept right on cutting. By the time I got home, the only thing left was stumps, fresh, raw, bleeding sap into the dirt like wounds you can't stitch up. The wind cut straight across the lot, carrying dust and silence where the pines used to sing. My dog sat beside me whining, and I just stood there, angry, empty, stunned. This wasn't an accident. They meant to do it. But why? 3 days later, I met Karen McClintock face to face. HOA president, pastel joggers, always on her phone, the sort of person who treats bylaws like gospel and doesn't bother learning your name unless you're on a committee. I showed up at the next board meeting with my binder, my maps ready to lay it all out. The room was packed with yoga moms, retirees, husbands in golf shirts looking bored out of their minds. Karen clicked a remote and up came the photos. Before unsafe visual barrier. After clean and code compliant. People nodded. I raised my hand, voice steady but low. Those were my trees, on my property, planted after the '98 Ridge Fire, certified, documented, federally funded. Karen smiled, all business, and started quoting perimeter zones in section 6 point whatever. I pulled out my survey's GPS overlays deed. She dismissed me. Not the right forum. I cut her off twice. The room went silent. She doubled down, said the board acted for safety, that my trees were deteriorating. I called her out, named the species the state grants the federal oversight, told her straight. You destroyed a buffer, and you don't even realize what you've exposed us to. She bristled. But the meeting rolled on, sidewalk chalk policies. Halloween decorations as if nothing happened. I left before it ended. That night I couldn't sleep, dug through my records, called up Nancy Yates at the State Urban Forestry Division. She remembered every seedling. Wes, if those trees were cut without review and damage happens, the HOA is liable. Yeah, I knew what was coming because I'd seen the weather reports, seen that kind of wind before. Sure enough, 4 days later, wind advisory. Gusts in the 50s. The HOA, in their wisdom, was setting up the clubhouse for a fall festival. New glass, new patio furniture, nothing between them and the oncoming gale but a few decorative shrubs. I watched the sky, felt the air shift, saw the clouds build over the ridge. And I documented everything: photos, soil movement, wind notes, video of the smoke pencil showing the new wind pattern barreling straight at their clubhouse. The storm hit like a hammer. The wind came down, the canyon slammed into the east wall of the clubhouse. 3 glass panels cracked, shattered dumped shards across the festival tables. Kids screamed, parents ran banners, snapped, an inflatable witch went flying, popcorn machine caught a spark and belched smoke. Sirens, firefighters, people in shock. Karen paced outside, hair wild, clipboard gone, shouting into her phone. Rick just stared at the damage, his face white as chalk. By Sunday morning, the aftermath was everywhere. Cracked windows in homes, busted siding, gazebos tossed across fences, bikes in the pool, the HOA clubhouse gutted, 40 grand in damage. And everyone knew exactly what used to stand between them and the wind. Me. My trees. The HOA called an emergency meeting. Neighbors who'd never spoken to me lined up with questions. Did the trees really matter that much? Would this have happened if they'd stayed up? I told them the truth. Yes and yes. Then the letter slid under my door, HOA blaming me for the whole thing. Said I'd failed to maintain landscaping, allowed a hazard, didn't participate in visual perimeter review. They were twisting the story, blaming the guy who tried to save them from their own ignorance. I called my lawyer, August Steele, trap memory, quiet voice, the sort who wins by never blinking. He said, "She's panicking, but she can't make this stick." We went to mediation first, showed every document, every map, the grant approvals, the wind tests. Karen's lawyers tried to argue it was ambiguous. The mediator all but rolled his eyes, recommended the HOA apologize, pay up, replant, or face court. Karen refused. So we sued. The news broke in the local paper. Daniel Reed wrote it up, Winds of Consequence, how HOA mismanagement cost a neighborhood its shield. Neighbors printed copies, taped them to mailboxes. Karen's power started slipping. By trial, I had support neighbors, the state Maria, with her phone video of the tree massacre. Karen took the stand, swore she'd never seen my letters. August produced the receipts. Her story crumbled. The judge ruled the HOA overreached, caused the damage, owed full restitution, and had to fund an ecological restoration plan. Karen resigned 2 days later. When I found a note on my porch from an old neighbor who once voted for her, "Thank you for not backing down," I realized it wasn't just about trees anymore. I replanted the first sapling myself, gloves on, wind finally quiet. This time the new board listened. They let me lead. Nancy drew up the new plan, neighbors helped, coffee, extra saplings, steady hands. Healing. I learned needs both space and roots. It'll take years for the canopy to return, but you can already feel the difference. The young trees bending, slowing the wind, holding the soil. The new HOA chair, Rick, welcomed me to the winter meeting. I told the story calm and plain. These trees aren't decorations, they're armor. And for once, everyone listened. Spring came, and with it my granddaughter. She asked me, "Why did they cut down your trees?" "Grandpa," I told her, "because they didn't understand." She touched a sapling, smiled, said, "They're strong." "That's right," I said. Later, someone left a framed photo on my porch. Old storm damage, new sapling side by side. A caption, "Wounds are where the roots enter." I hung it in my hallway. Now, as the wind moves across Pine Hollow, it finds resistance again, not just from the trees, but from the people who finally learned what it means to listen. So here's my question for you. When it comes to community, who decides what gets protected and who pays the price when pride gets in the way? Let me know below. Because sometimes the biggest storms don't come from the sky, but from the choices we make and the lessons we refuse to learn.